Just a cute.
Hey. Hello, everyone. Disappearing hand. Disappearing
There it
hand.
is. Yeah.
I can't name myself.
Were you letting people in, Nancy?
Yes, I let everybody in.
Oh, there's one person got stuck. I just clicked on him. We're good.
Okay. Because I disabled the waiting room, so.
Yeah, but if they get in there right the
Right
wrong
when you,
second,
right when you
yeah.
click.
Yeah, then they sometimes they still get stuck in the waiting room.
I'll do it this way. You can see it. Like if it's against you, you can see it. If it's out there, it disappears.
Yep. Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Hey,
Maybe my head won't be terribly misshapen with this one. I put the fascinator on yesterday and half my head went away. So it's just the
Well-
wrong color green.
welcome everybody to
the
our.
backgrounds, it doesn't like them for whatever reason.
No,
I tried.
even if you have, even if
I
you
have one here and I tried and it disappears. See, it's like it's not staying. So there is no point to it right now.
Welcome everybody to our after hours 18 plus content with Vera Nazarian. And we are going to talk about Amrevet Days.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Vera, I'm going to start off with tell us more. We want to know more about Amrevet Days.
Well, we are going to talk funny stuff, as TikTok would call it, spicy 5 chili pepper stuff. Well, this nonsense came about because people on TikTok cannot use certain words, otherwise their accounts will be banned. So they came up, instead of saying sex, they say smex. Instead of saying sexy, they say either smexy or just say chili pepper scale. So they use 5 chili peppers, meaning like super erotically sexy, but it has become a thing that everybody knows now. So we're using that too. 5 chili peppers. So here's the thing about Amrevet Days. Now, those of you who know, I have decided to include the intimate details of our wonderful Gwen and Nathan's honeymoon and make a book out of it. Now, this is really technically a part of the Atlantis Grail series, the original series, but we can't put it in there because it's an adult book. So we're not including it as a part of the core series. Now, Amrevet Days, for those of you who obviously read the Atlantis Grail, is the term, the Atlantean honeymoon. It's a term that is used to indicate it's the equivalent of a honeymoon, where a wedded couple takes the next 8 months or so to have, discover each other, and then they take this special trip. They disappear from their friends and family, and they basically go off and have their very intimate, one-on-one time together. But what we decided to do is, because a lot of people wanted to know about this, instead of just me mentioning this like that, they wanted to actually see what was happening one-on-one with Gwen and Nathan. And of course, I couldn't just do that because that doesn't, even if I included something like that in the book of everything, which eventually I might hint at, I can't, because that's not the level of the series. The series is not adult, it's not spicy, it's not sexy. I can have, the closest I've done is I've shown you the wedding night in Survive, but the wedding night in Survive is, even so, it's open door bedroom, but I don't get very technical. I don't get into I tread it very carefully. There's a line. So yes, we're going to describe a honeymoon. What are you going to do, right? Or I mean, a wedding night. So you kind of have to say something, but
You used a lot of use euphemisms.
Euphemisms and so like I would describe other things around them instead of what they're doing, because it's a YA, and if I
Exactly.
break the category and just upset a lot of people, I couldn't do that. And there's nothing wrong with either way. Like there's nothing wrong not wanting to read this, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to read this type of material. So it's just up to you, and I decided to divide that. Now, Amrevet Days is going to be a serialized chapter by chapter byplay of everything that Gwen and Asen do together. And it starts off, I've already included, I have an introduction and the first 2 chapters of what they left on their honeymoon, and it's being serialized on my Patreon. And I had to label the Patreon itself to be an adult 18 plus NSFW Patreon, just because of this content, because the other stuff on my Patreon is just regular serializing EOS, which is, regular tag level general audience stuff. But because it includes other material in the Patreon, so that's the only place I could put this without invoking the platform censor gods of, be it Wattpad, any other place. I mean, once you start putting this type of content where you're talking terms, you're saying things like cock, you're saying terms and words that are erotic, they start to censor you, you can get banned, and so on and so forth. So it's just not a good idea. But so many people have wanted to know what was happening between them. So we're going to go through and we're going to start with the intimate details, and we're going to take them all around the Atlantean continent and across on the other side of the planet to New Deshret, everywhere else. And they're going to have sex in every possible place you can imagine. But I also give readers on Patreon the option to vote. So I have certain scenarios in mind. I have certain things in mind, and I give them as a poll, and the people can just choose whatever they think they may want to see. For example, we had one poll where I asked them, do you want to see them in the water? Do you want to see them, recreating the jump scene? Do you want to see, certain scenarios? And people, and I saw, I made the poll, and I take it in mind. Basically, I will eventually include a lot of these scenes, but this gives me a better idea of what people are interested in, because this is that type of book. It's for you, it's for the fans, because people really, really want to see this. So we're going to discover what kind of sex they like. They're gonna, what kind of positions they like, what type of response they have to each other. Now, we know that Gwen and Asen had this very intense mind meld type of thing with the Pegase. Remember in Survive, when there was like a moment where they were allowed to share their minds. So it kind of brought them really close together already, and it gave them an understanding of what the other partner might want. And I didn't say anything because we weren't going to get into that in Survive. That's not the level of intimacy we could say without invoking that fine line. So I just kind of said, yeah, they had this thing, they had a moment, they experienced this wonder. But here we may actually delve deeper in every sense of the word of what they experienced in that mind joining of minds that was so intense that it almost destroyed their boundaries of self. Which
and basically
they're
both very inexperienced when it comes to physical intimacy.
Yeah.
So they're exploring and they're having fun.
Right.
Okay,
They're having fun.
this?
And Asen had his restrictions, his Cassiopeia position makes him basically like a stud. He has to have this sacrifice, the rite of sacrifice, the only thing they could do. And it's like a job. So to him, that's the only kind of sex he was able to conceive before that. But as a young man with all the healthy needs, he was very much interested in having a normal sex life, which now that he has a wife and he has Gwen, they can do it finally. They can make love to each other without worrying about, if it's if he's going to be committing some kind of a Cassiopeia sin against the dynasty, or, because supposedly if a Cassiopeia man is not supposed to even, he cannot spill the seed outside of the body, it's just like all these weird things having to do with their role as this, the procreative, kind of like the original human gene or trait that they have. So anyway, all this stuff we're going to explore in the Amrevet Days, and the book is going to be long. It's going to go into all kinds of sexy details, and I want to make it, it's not just smut, okay, because that's the other term. The romance community uses the term smut to refer to very sexual books. It is not just smut. There's a plot line there. There are emotions, there are other things that happen in the world around them. So you're not going to get just basic, insert the dick into the C word, which I don't even like to use, but, and one thing I'm going to tell you, I will use certain words in the book, but I do not like the C word. So I don't think you're not going to get that from me. There's certain words.
The female version of the C word.
Female version of the C word.
Yeah.
I just don't like, I don't even want to use that. But you will have other kind of like rough and tumble kind of terms. But so far, if you've read the one intro and 2 chapters, then you kind of have an idea of what level we're going for. So it is
Vera, I do have a question about that. The what's being produced on Patreon, is that going to be the actual order, or you're going to kind of mix it up a little bit when you finally put it together?
Good question. I have not decided because the book is not put together yet. When I have more chapters, now I tend to write things in order. So there's a very good chance this is the final order. But there may be certain things I may insert later on. So we're not 100% sure, but like 95% sure that's the order. Because it's just how the story develops, and also because they are going to different places. And if they suddenly show up somewhere else, it won't make sense.
Well, yeah, right now they're in New Deshret.
Yeah, and they're in New Deshret, and the first chapter, that chapter in New Deshret is done, but they're still there. So I can't just jump and insert something, So it has to make sense, and there's a cat involved. So they've stopped with. There is a cat watching them. That's a new cat is watching Gwen and Asen go for it in a very sexy, interesting outdoor environment.
What gets me is, okay, where's the guards? I mean, they can't, walk anywhere without the guards. And I'm thinking of poor 2R,
What happens is those guards, like 2R would not even be close. This is already the Imperial Guards. So those 2R was her guard. So he was like the consorts, the bride's guard. But what they're doing right now is because this area is safe, so they have sent out to people to sweep the area. So when Gwen says, "What are we going to take our clothes off here?" In the middle of nowhere, and he said, "Don't worry about it," because he knows that this area has been checked. There's nobody there except wildcats and other creatures. So no people to interrupt them. So they're safe. That's one thing I'm going to underscore, is that as they're going to these different places around the planet, because that's what they're doing. Their whole Amrevet Days will be like a journey around Atlantis with sex. They're going there a lot of places that may be enemy territory, like they're not really friendly nations, but they will have agreements beforehand. So they won't just show up in like a terrorist type of area, where it's dangerous and they're going to get shot. So no. But we're going to explain everything, and they will meet certain people that you've met before along the way as they're having their romantic, sexy times. They will also have plot points happening. Now, those plot points will later on show up in the Book of Everything, a little bit of that. But they will obviously, all the sexy parts will not be, they will not be mentioned as much, because that's not for that type of book. So anyway, that's what we're doing right now. We're going to keep it straight in order, single linear plot line. And Oh, points of view may change. I think this is something that I took a poll on. I asked the readers at the on Patreon, I asked the poll, would you like only Gwen's point of view for these scenes? Do you want to have Aeson's point of view? Do you want to have both of them back and forth? And the consensus is everybody wants to have mostly from Gwen's point of view with occasional chapters from Aeson's point of view. Now, how can we have this? Because this is supposed to be Gwen's diary, right? Gwen's private, intimate diary of her sexual encounters with her husband. Well, Aeson has his own diary, and we discover. So Aeson will be writing his own little book of everything. And that's how we get occasional chapters with Aeson's point of view. And it'll be, yeah.
Personally, I think it's quite liberating for Aeson to have an actual written diary, considering his his upbringing, and his father, he had basically no privacy.
Yes,
And he was
couldn't
always
write
afraid
anything
his
down.
dad would see something, so he couldn't write anything down. It all had to be up in his head.
So anything that before, even now, he's still a little paranoid about it, but he has to remember every time he starts to think, private thoughts, like, can I share this? He pauses and then he remembers, no, it's okay. I'm the king, I am the imperator of this. There's nobody above who can tell me to not do this or record me or send out nanocams to watch my, whatever. So yeah, he's learning that.
It's good to be king, right?
Exactly. It's good to be king.
Same thing. I hadn't even thought about the nano cameras aspect. Yeah, that would be there's a line, man. There's a line.
Right. If there's any paparazzi types who decide to, hey, we love our new imperator and his beautiful bride, and she's so awesome. Let's just check him out, right? Well, unlike Earth, where you have paparazzi running around like after Prince Harry and that whole thing just happened recently. Well, in Atlantis, they just zap them. They would turn like a techno filter on, and all the cams will be dead. So they can do an EMP pulse to kill destroy any kind of spy equipment. So yeah, they will handle it. They will have people like Anu would be taking care of it. Anu, his other aide Genio would be they would be just setting up all the technology necessary to
I remember you mentioning privacy filters.
Yeah, privacy
Once and
filters,
survive.
they can do that. They're good at that. That's what they do. So that's not a concern for nanocams, and especially now that he is the supreme leader of everyone. So he's not going to have. He has access to the best tech possible.
Vera, is it difficult to write these spicy scenes?
It's different. It's not really difficult because as I'm writing the original series, I can see the spicy scenes too, but it's actually more difficult to write the non-spicy versions because I have to work around it. Oh my lordy Lord, I have to work around that because it's not normal. You just want to say what they're doing, but you just can't because it's, YA or supposedly, kind of, it's technically YA, but what is YA? It's just there's a fine line between a middle grade fiction, YA fiction, new adult, and then adult, regular general audience adult. So it's kind of between, it straddles the line between YA and new adult, but some YA have very, very sexy stuff. They have people saying that, fuck the F word. They use other terms that would be just like a no-no, but it's still YA.
Well, what I've never understood about that, or certainly these days, is that okay, the publishers want to keep the YA and new adult things, clean. It's like, come on, more dirty words than we do,
Exactly. The irony of it is that all the people who read their dirtiest books are like YA age. They're like, hormonal teens.
I did when I was that age. Anytime you found somebody with a smutty book, oh man, it made the rounds,
Yeah, that's exactly like Judy Blume's Forever in high school. That thing made the rounds, and we were like in high school. And this is just, what are you going to do? You can't stop kids because the kids who want to get that material will get to it anyway. But it's when you're forbidding books and like getting into like forbidden books, it's ridiculous because the only thing you can forbid is a person, like, are you going to jail them in their house and just, not let, parents can control some aspects of this, but in the end, if the kid wants to get that, they're going to get it. So anyway, that's a
Yeah,
different kind of.
they've been writing, I mean, smut's been around for centuries. I think it's 16th century. Was it Fanny?
Well, they have
Fanny
visual.
Hill,
they have
was it?
pictures. They had like, smutty porn, whatever, that's old fashioned. I mean, they would have naked people in different positions. And of course, there's the Kama Sutra, which is the Indian sex position manual, which is like a whole kind of like semi-holy, whatever, like it's like a manual for how sex is to be done. And those people really get weird. Some of the things they try. Those contortions that they do in some of those things, because and the point is that they don't make a big deal out of it. This is just like a part of the culture. And here we've decided that it is, oh no, it is so horrible to write anything about sex that we have to make up these categories, because in the long run, those categories are all because of that. Not so much violence, but because of sex. YA, you assume it's like no sex, little to like no sense, maybe a few bad words, but overall no sex. Then you have new adult, where they go for new adult. Usually, that category has a lot of sex. Then you have general adult, which for some reason it doesn't have as much sex as new adult. So it's like they've had their fill. They're like, whatever, so it's like general adult audiences, they may or may not have sex. And then there's, of course, there's pure erotica and then there's porn. So the difference, the fine lines between erotica and porn is whether or not you have plot and if it's quality written. If it's well written with a plot besides sex, it's erotica. If it's just, nothing but, movement, thrusting and whatever, body parts, that's porn. So that whole long line of different categories, it's really a fine line. You can't, like, where do you set these boundaries? I don't know. So to get back to the original question, it's just harder to not write it than write it. Because sometimes you just don't want to be writing a lot about the it's a slow burn thing. The sex doesn't fit into the plot line. But when it does, you want to talk about it because it's going to happen, right? It's ridiculous. You want to talk that they did it, whatever. And it's like, that's a part of the story. So, and when you have to go around it and come up with euphemisms and, describe the surroundings and whatever, and the noise, it's like, it's hard. That takes a long time.
Well, do you ever wind? I'm sorry. I was going to say, do you ever wind up like, if you're writing not Amrevet Days itself, but if you're writing a sexy scene in one of the other books in the YA versions, do you ever wind up writing it shall we call it the smutty way, and then go back so you can get everything in there that you want, and then go back and figure out the other words?
I would write it out and I go, okay, now let's look at it and see which does not fit this level. So I'm like, okay, take that out, euphemize this. I mean, literally, like, I think when we had our good old favorite chapter, was it chapter 33 in Compete, everybody the jump scene.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think I wrote it out more explicitly, and then I said, I can't use that word, or I can't talk about his pants. I can't do it's like it's like, oh, okay. So that rerouted, I pared it down to Lord knows what, so it's hard. It's ridiculous because that's what you have to do to fit that whatever genre requirements. But you got to do it because there's no way I could avoid it. It was part of the story. It was important. It made sense. So some form of it had to be included in the story. So.
Nancy, you got another question yet? There's one in the chat.
And that's what I was going to ask you, if you wanted to ask that, because I just saw it.
Okay, so Kim wants to know, why did you choose to not release both YA and adult versions of your books?
Because they're not versions. There's no version. I mean, it's just one book. I decided to write the storyline was written already. I'm not going to it's like to me, that goes with the same question. Why don't you just write everything from the hero's point of view? I don't want to rewrite the book and just change the sex scenes. I mean, I find it boring. I'm one of those writers who, the reason I'm a pantser, which is writing by the seat of my pants, is if I start planning ahead, I'm too bored to write the story. So if I had to rewrite any story with just like sex or no sex, I would be like, you know, it would just make me so bored and so unhappy to write that type of stuff. So nope.
Well, and if you're not having fun writing it, then it's going to show, and then
Yeah,
the fans aren't
exactly.
going to like it, because
Yeah, 'cause it'll
we
be
can tell
dull
if you're not enjoying it, then it's a quote job
Yeah.
or a chore that has to be done, and it's reflected in the way that you write things.
And you know, there's nothing sadder than reading like boring sex scenes, because so much romance has, I mean, not saying all, but like the smut genre, the contemporary, so much of it is boring. A lot of it is great. I'm not saying it. There's really well done sex scenes, but they're also really, it's like, they're like this, and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. You know, this is not really adding to the story. There's no excitement there because there's nothing new. It's all this, again, new is the emotion. It doesn't have to be new positions. We're not talking new that way. It's the newness, the freshness of the characters coming together. So that's
Well,
what makes it
and
good. Yeah.
I think we've often talked about, you know, with some other of our shared favorite books and TV shows, when the couple is physically intimate, it needs to be part of the actual story and not just you know, the whole thing about being physically intimate. It's how they express their feelings.
It's a part of the story. It's also a build-up. Without the build-up, it's just, again, it becomes like they're walking along and then they stop and they have sex and then they keep going. It's like, what happened? You know, that's boring. It's stupid, it's boring, it makes no sense, and it's pointless.
I've read a couple
And
of,
let's face it, with Gwen and Asen, there is a lot of sexual tension between the two of them that had been building for a year and a half
Or
until
books.
they finally got married.
yeah. So basically it's a heck of a lot of foreplay. if
Yes,
we're-
yes.
that one, yeah.
And I think that's what people misunderstand, because foreplay is what gets the romance, you know, makes the romance books good. Without it, it's porn. And it's a simple definition. Without it, you're just reading porn. And it's like, you've read one and you've read them all. So
Yeah. Well, I've read a couple of mystery novels that they seem to go about the sex scenes a slightly different way, which I always thought of them as they were like almost tacked in at filler space. Like, oh, I you know, my book isn't quite enough words here. Let me go write a sex scene that doesn't belong, and the characters have never expressed an interest in each other whatsoever. And then to top it all off, sort of to insult the reader even further, it's not even a really good sex scene. It's just, I don't know, I just read that and go, just boring as, you know, yeah. So it's like you said, unless it's going to be part of the story, you know, unless you're going to make it worth it, don't put it in there.
the sex scene itself needs to be like the build, like the sex. It needs to be a great build up and a release. So without that, the release is useless. That's like the whole scene is the release part, and it's not working because there's no build up. And you're like, there's a term called insta love, which some books tend to do in romance, where suddenly they're in love, like boom, and that like what, how, where?
Where'd that come from? Yeah.
So there's like really, again, that build up is missing. So there is no without a build up, there is no good resolution. And when they say, was it good for you? No, those scenes were not, because there was not.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, in Win and Survive, you know, how many times did Anu, you know, walk in on them when they're, you know, which was actually good, because chances are they would have gone a little bit too far, but
Right, exactly.
you know, it was, you know, just like throwing a bucket of
Saved
cold
by the
water
Bell
on 'em.
or Saved by Anu.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and it had to be him, because he's the one that's going, oh my
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I have so much
Ow.
fun
Never gonna be
whenever
able
I
to
do that.
look at them the same way. Come on.
Yeah, I think if the phrase "get a room" had been used on, yeah, that's exactly what he would have said.
That's
Oh,
the equivalent,
even though
right?
they were already like in his bedroom, he
Right.
still would have said, "Get a room."
It should be more
Well,
like,
you know,
oh, you're in a
he
room,
walks
I
in
need
on-
to leave
he
the room.
walks in her bedroom, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, what are you doing in here? Well, they kicked me out. Why are you in my wife's bedroom?
Exactly.
Awkward dork. You know?
Awkward dork, exactly.
So, and he was hiding there because he was so traumatized by seeing them again that he was hiding during the actual wedding reception. So remember, LaRonda had to go and like get him out of here.
Yeah, you know.
So that's how it is, you know, like the fun of writing fun sex and sexy and erotic and romantic scenes is the long build up, the interactions with all the other characters, the wait. And yes, it can be sometimes slow burn can be so long and slow that people are like already get together, you know, get together already. Enough is enough. But when they do get together, you want to have that build up because that makes it really good for the reader because they're like, wow, this is like finally it's like the goal of their relationship has come together, you know. So
It's a little like the book version of Winning the Lottery. There's a good payoff.
Yay.
yes,
Yes.
exactly.
I mean, I think the funniest part was in Survive when, you know, right after, you know, she's been rescued and, you know, oh, look, you know, look, there's Amrevet out in the sky. And he's going, well, you know, that they say that when a woman sees it, that means she's with child. And then she goes, oh. Gwen, what's going on? You know that special drink I'm supposed to drink? Yeah. Well, I couldn't do it because I was out in space.
I was floating in a spaceship with I was drinking my own pee. Filtered
So,
pee.
he goes,
So
well,
there
then
was
if that's the case, let's make sure.
Yes.
I like that. Well, you know. Yeah, that was
It's
fun.
good stuff. So it's just a lot of fun. And I really wish, you know, I wish the categories in terms of marketing and publishing and just even public people reading, you know, I wish there was more of a like if it's time for good sex, you talk about it. If it's not, then you
Okay,
don't.
Vera,
you can't.
you're going to start laughing. Carrie made a comment. Unless it's going to be worth it, don't put it in there. LOL, no pun intended.
That's
Yes.
right.
If somebody
and
else
don't
says, I
put it
need to
in
get a
there
towel now,
immediately, you know,
spit
don't
my
do-
water everywhere on that one.
Yeah, so all this stuff is like, you know, for me, I'm seeing the Amrevet Days is like an opportunity to really give you guys what they're having and like I don't want to make it boring, like I said, boring porno, same old thing, every scene the same sex. Like, no, it's going to be different, not just where they are or how they do it, but emotionally, you know, what kind of emotional build up they're having, what type of other experiences they're having at the same time, like where are they, you know, what are they going through at that point when they're doing it. So it's going to be a good, I have a feeling it's going to be a really, really good book when we're done with it, but that's going to take a long time because I'm going to have, it's going to be a long serialized, you know, chapter by chapter thing. So.
Well,
So-
and then it's some of the political leaders, like, you know, they'll meet the Farrakhan.
Yeah,
She'll get to meet Harrow, you know, face to face.
Also, one person that I think this is a little spoiler for you guys, since, you know, we're doing fun spoilers. You have met one person who was the fifth in line for the throne. It's a little spoiler, and he's an Astra Daimon, and you met him in one of the novellas. He will show up as a guest, like he's Aeson's friend. So, and then of course he will be continued on in the main core book number 5 in the Book of Everything. He'll show up there, but you will also kind of like, this is earlier, so you will see him here, and then you'll see him again later. So yeah, there will be certain people coming into the story here.
Cool. Another person in the chat asked if we're going to get a teaser for Amrevet Days outside of the Patreon. So if people don't
Can't,
want
I can't, it's dirty. The
to.
very first sentence has a dick. It's hard. It's like, you can't, I just like literally, if I do that, in fact, I had to blur out the Patreon has like a front, kind of like you can see the first page and it starts to blur. And if I was gonna literally include it the way it is, it would have been like inappropriate for the other tiers, because the other tiers can't see that blur part. They can see the first sentence. And the first sentence already has the word dick in it, so I had to replace with like a blank and like NSFW or some other wording. So
Yeah, that was kind of a learning curve.
yeah, that was the intro, and I think people were like, "Whoa, what's happening?"
Vera, did you really mean to do that? Oh,
Yes,
no.
I did mean that. That first
how do I
sentence
fix
is
it?
That's a doozy right from the right there. Like, you just go in. So
Yeah, the first sentence of the
the intro.
introduction.
There's 3 chapters. I call it the intro because it's kind of a chapter 1, but it's also like Gwen's telling us she's about to embark on the story, like the private journey of town. So, and she gets very dirty already meaning like very explicit in the very first sentence of that. So yeah.
Well, talking about the Patreon itself, if anybody joins now, even though there's been like 3 posts so far, do they get to go back and read everything that was already published?
Oh yeah, you get, what happens is the Patreon has many tiers. So the basic tier is just like, it's the regular, the $3 tier, $3 a month, you get to read regular tag. There's no dirty stuff. You just have to read, you will have to access to all the chapters of EOS, which is obviously, book 1 of the prequel series, and so on, as I will be serializing all the other books as they happen. But oh, and you will also have like the some of the super fan series. I'm going to be doing the Atlantean Zodiac. I will be posting like one Zodiac chapter every now and then. You'll get that. So that's the first tier, $3. Then once you go into the second tier, that's when the sexy stuff is. That's the $6 tier and up. So there's, after $6, you have
I thought it was
access to
7.
all.
Is it 6? I thought it was 7.
No, it's $6. Yeah, so $6
6.
for you get to read EOS and the dirty stuff, but you can't vote. Like, you don't have the ability to vote on the polls. So the next tier is like $10. Then you can read and vote and whatever. So just check out, and the Patreon is not. If you go to Patreon, you can't search for me because they put us in a dungeon. Any Patreon that's 18 adult 18 plus is non-searchable. So the only way you can do it is go through my website, go to the tag.fan, then go to, do I even have it there? I don't think I even had a chance to. No, I think I may have it there. Yeah. Go to tag.fan and you will see a button for Patreon. So you could
Oh,
find
is it
there.
out there?
Hang on just a minute and I will.
I was going to say in the chat, I've been telling people just send me their email and I would email it to them, but it's good to know it's out on there.
Yeah,
So.
it's out. I am pretty sure it's a big blue. It's like a kind of like a graphic which says Patreon. It's a picture, like a sexy picture of men and women, and like an Egyptian style,
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Go for it.
Okay, so I sent a couple of the people that gave me their emails, the thing.
And the thing is, just to let you guys know, you are really helping me out here because you are getting this story. You're getting it early ahead of whenever it comes out. You're getting all of them. You're getting L's and stuff. And you're helping me write because this is how I make my living. This is my
Okay,
job is, scroll down a
this
little bit.
is
Yeah, keep
I am.
scrolling down. There we go, right there.
right here.
Oh,
and if
that should
you-
take you to it. Okay, cool.
And if you, I will
Yeah.
go ahead and click it.
There you go.
I didn't realize it was there.
It was right there. And then what you can do is, these are the things that you can see, like, if you click on, go up a little bit, go to membership, or no, go about, click to about, that'll give you the tiers. Where it says home, about, membership,
Okay, wait a minute.
in the middle, right in the middle,
Oh, okay.
there we go, yeah. Click on about, and that should give you, yeah, so it gives you a description, and then it starts giving you, I think it gives you the tiers right there. If you keep scrolling down. So it tells you about my Patreon, what it, Oh, actually, maybe not. Maybe it is membership. So
Well,
go-
no, it may not, because this is
You're already a
actually
member, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
my
say,
plan.
Click on
I'm
membership.
getting the same thing because I'm logged into my account. It's telling me different
Yeah,
stuff.
there you go. So, okay, you're already there. So that's, yeah. So, but if you're not a member, then you will get a different, you will get all the tiers above and below. So you will see $3, the first tier, then 6, 10, and so on. So, and you have different rewards for the tiers. And of course, I have a silly, like, who is gonna give me $500 a month? No, that's the crazy. It's just what you do, because Patreon gives you tiers and you just set them up. And people always do it. Some people have like $1,000 tier, that's insane. So I just have those, but most of my people are in the first 3 tiers, and that's pretty normal. Most people will be doing $3 a month, like, you'd buy a cup of coffee. That's about. And for that price, think about it. You're helping me write, because that's my job. Is until the book is out, I don't get paid, and it's really hard. It's how hard it is for writers. So especially now when Amazon is doing strange things. Anyway, Patreon helps me out, and it helps you out because you get to read it now, and you get to read the sexy stuff, which I cannot post anywhere else. I'm not gonna put until it's done. However many months or whatever it takes, those are only going to be just on the Patreon. So that's how it is.
Cool.
But as with everything else, the best place to go is tag.fan.
Yeah.
Tag
That has everything.
It has the new list, the new T is out, because I don't know if we mentioned it, right? We mentioned
I did mention it at opening this morning, yes.
T is out. So all of that is like, if you don't know the links, just go to tag.fan, and it's everything from there on. Just scroll down and you'll see anything you can think of related to the Atlantis girl.
The date converters and
Oh yeah.
See what your birthday would have been on Atlantia.
Yeah, exactly.
how old would you be?
Yeah, exactly. How would you be now? All that good stuff. Yeah. So I know since we're talking about the Patreon and Amrevet Days, so you've put up some polls on the site to ask people like what they would want to see. How much does that actually sway you with what you're going to write about?
Good question. It does sway me because, for example, you guys wanted the water scenes, so I gave you the water scenes because that was the top scoring poll from the previous month, and because that was the thing. Do you want them here, there, whatever the questions were, I forget now. One of them was water days, one of them was recreate the jump scene, and then some other ones. So anyway, the top score was water, so I said, okay, we're going straight for that. So you got all the ponds of New Deshret next to the Great Pyramid of Giza and all that, the wildlife and the amazing channels and the waterfalls and all that stuff. Yeah. So you
Well,
got
plus the fact that we know from, Asen telling Gwen, well, normally we swim naked. I mean, we don't wear swimsuits.
Yeah, exactly. So and to me, he's like, he just dropped his pants.
Okay, let's go swim. And then, next thing you know,
she's like, well, okay, can anybody see us? He's
well,
like,
take your clothes off. Come on. I mean, I thought that was just that was, and then he comes up, he's got such a dry sense of humor when at one point she's asking him something and he just, and I can visualize him looking at her and say, are we speaking rhetorically here? Or do you really want an answer?
That's right. So, and the thing about it is that I will show you how Asen kind of opens up, like, Gwen flowers to say it, and he also opens up, like he becomes like this physically relaxed. He's no longer hiding anything. He's got his love there with him, and they're just basically open to each other. And, it's all good. There's no dark, in this thing. One person was kind of concerned before when I announced that I'm doing this erotic, very intimate stuff. She's like, are you going to respect, will he be respecting Gwen? I'm thinking, of course. There's nothing has changed. The characters are the same. They're the same people in love. This is not dark romance. Okay, you know about the genre dark romance where people are like, basically it's like murderous, like mafia, whatever, or like devils, demonic, whatever. It's like, no, they're not going to suddenly go dark romance. It just becomes sadistic, whatever. No, this is Gwen and Asen. So you will have a very loving relationship, but very explicit. That's all. It's just a loving, explicit, sexy, good time. Nothing.
And they're going to experiment. They're going to say, okay, well, how about we try this? Okay, that's all fine.
But it'll be very loving. In other words, there's nothing. The bad thing about, or like, not bad, because I'm not going to judge dark romance. People love it, and for some people it works. I personally not a big fan of it for my own reading, but I'm not going to say, oh no, it's like, yeah, if I'm sure there's great stories. I think I've downloaded a couple just to get an idea of what they're like. They're good. Some of them, and some of them are like, this is a little too much blood and gore, But this is not going to mean that I'm suddenly going to that level of, they're not going to incorporate a harem, we're not going to do the white choose / reverse harem stuff, because that's not what Gwen and Ace's relationship is. So don't worry, there's not going to have a multiple partners or an orgy, because maybe in ancient days, the Imperator and his, people had an orgy. Remember the big beds?
Maybe back in Semi's time.
Yeah, kind of like that, or actually not even there, but like in the interim, between the first escape from Atlantis and then the arrival, when they arrived, like the first few centuries of their being, they were figuring things out. So yeah, but yeah, there were orgies in those beds, but it doesn't mean that we're suddenly gonna have Gwen and Ace inviting their friends.
No, Gwen and Ace are going to be busy enough with all the children.
Yeah. So that
I think we were figuring out, okay, if we go by Atlantean years, she'll have 5 children by the time she's 20.
Yeah.
Not 20?
You guys,
She's only 14 when she gets married.
Oh, by Atlantean age.
Yeah,
By Atlantean years, yes.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, she was 18.
Right.
That was
math.
20 years.
She knew that math. Okay, yes, I keep
Yeah,
getting it.
because now we have to look at things in Atlantean terms, because they're no longer on Earth time. So time is, and I have to mention that it's going to be a 9-month, not a 9-month gestation, but a 10-month gestation, right? For a human female on Atlantis, because it's the same time, but because the months are shorter and there are more of them, so it becomes like a different.
Yeah, I think we had figured out it was like 10 months.
Yeah, something like 10 months. So you guys know better. I'm not. This is why I need.
Liz and I were figuring. We were trying to figure it out. Okay, well, since they, okay, well, yeah, it might not. Then it was. We had all sorts of things that we had to, take into consideration for, from conception to birth.
Something in that question I just saw from Ellen about their pregnancy timing. What was that?
She said I was struggling with how they timed Amrevet Days because of her pregnancy with Margot.
Yeah, it's like she is already pregnant. She's not super pregnant yet, but because this is, they're exploring their bodies. But in fact, that's a part of the storyline. It's like Gwen is worried, or can we do this when I'm pregnant? They've had doctors tell them, they had all these things. So they've taken care of that aspect. There's nothing scary anymore, because they know what's possible, what's okay for the child, So yeah, and it's going to be an unusual type of storyline, because here are people who are having a baby, but they're still having sex. So that's how this story worked out that way. I'm not going to, change it just because of some of their concerns. So they have to be careful, and it contributes to like their intimacy, to their level of love, because they're worried. They want to not hurt the baby, do nothing that's going to, harm their beloved child. So that's a part.
Well, and they did kind of wait until after the first trimester, when she got, had all the.
She was a little bit too sick and not interested in doing anything in terms of sex, because she was like, and then I think I mentioned that, was it in the first chapter where I said that her, after her morning sickness, that stuff ended. So yeah, in other words,
and then her appetite for sex increased, so she
right.
couldn't,
So she
couldn't get enough.
Yeah. So, and that's why it works. And I did research in terms of how that affects people who are pregnant, and some people completely lose their sex drive. Others are the opposite. So for Gwen's sake, let's go with the, good, healthy, solid sex drive for her. So.
However, I will say that typically Atlanteans waited 8 months after they were married. Well, if Asen and Gwen had waited that long, she would be, way out here, and she
And
would have
that's
been
part of the
very,
reason
very
they didn't want to
uncomfortable.
do it, right? That whole situation with them was really unplanned because, again, alien war, what are they, they couldn't, the whole thing just happened. So they may have had a different honeymoon period, a different Amrevet Days had this been gone according to plan, but
Yeah,
this was
exactly.
not really planned, it
Yes.
just happened.
But
So-
like with many things, the universe kind of giggles and said, "Oh, it's cute.
Yeah.
You make plans." Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes it more real this way, because if I was gonna very, technically, let's give them this, then they get pregnant after 8 months. Like, no, this story did not happen this way, and let's take it as it happens. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, she did not plan on getting pregnant. That, she did was kind of, oops.
Yeah. Oh,
it was a big oops, but then there was nothing she could have done. She would have had to have her drink inside her spacesuit as she's floating. No, that's not gonna happen.
That's probably the last thing on her mind at that moment.
yeah. Yeah. She had a lot of other things on her mind.
And, yeah,
As
she
I
could have
said.
done it on the shuttle, but would Asen have brought it? I mean, her
No,
supply
yeah, it was
probably
impossible.
just-
It was an impossibility. So, yeah, but that's how it is. And I like the fact that I'm making it more real. So it's like you will get a story of real people having a very loving time together. And don't anybody who is any way concerned that this is changes Asen or changes Gwen. No, they're not going to become different people just because we suddenly know about their sex life. It just makes them more real. So.
Does anybody have any last minute questions for Vera? Because we are running close to the end of our session. Anybody? Okay.
Anything else? Well, hope to see you all, whoever you can. If you can afford the Patreon, I'll be very happy for that. Extremely grateful because you'll be helping me write. But if you can't, that's okay. So at some point, this book will be done and it will be published. But again, months and months, even possibly years later. So that's how it is for now.
Oh, we do have some, Kathleen Smith wants to know, how long of a time does the Amrevet Days last?
It's supposed to be 8 months, 8 Atlantean months.
Well, no,
Yeah.
how long their actual quote honeymoon lasts?
I'm leaving it open because it
Okay.
depends on how the story goes. Completely open, because a lot of it is you guys will be voting on things. Like I have a certain specific scenarios in mind. I will set up the polls, and as the polls give me more direction, so it's like you're directing the story, and then as I write it, there's another thing that pops up. So it's like it may go for like months. They may be doing, and until she gives birth, maybe, until it's no longer feasible. So we'll see. That may be a good cutoff point, but that would mean like if she's pregnant at was it first trimester? So maybe like another 3 months or like 2 months until she's no longer so at least a couple of months, and the stories will be day by day. So you have plenty of story there to give you good adventures with it.
And this is what this is actually what she needs, as well as she needs to tour the planet. I think
Yeah.
that was kind of his goal to be in the beginning before his dad kind of messed things up. He wanted to take her on a tour of the planet so that she could decide, okay, well, I kind of like this and this is nice.
And
Oh,
because
that's
the
where they
thing-
put the Statue of Liberty. Okay, well, that makes sense.
And the thing is that he did, if you guys recall in Wynn, I believe it was Wynn, when he was telling her that I will take you on a tour of the space stations, because he's,
Mhm.
you know, commanding officer. Well, two things. The states, half of the stations are gone. They've been bombed to all oblivion by the aliens. Number two, he's no longer the commander. He's been replaced by someone else, and we're gonna discover that. I don't know if if I will mention it in this book or not, but we'll see. So, but you will definitely know who is the new, you know, SPC, you know, Star Pilot Corps commander. So that person will be now in charge of the fleet. So he's not like Asen can go on and say, I'm gonna, you know, take you here and there. It'll be a private thing. If he was gonna take her anywhere, it's now completely private.
I mean, I'm just kind of curious as to who who he left in charge.
Yeah, that's not coming up today.
They,
You're not getting that. No,
I mean, we want, yes, we want to know, but
Yes, you want to know.
is
I
it
know.
a priority? No.
Yeah, it's not a problem. It'll be fun as you read it, because you will see how and why, and it's like, you know, it'll be in its own sweet time.
I mean, Asen's a planner, so he's got it all figured out.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, he really plans things, everything, you know. So that,
Well, that's a blue trait, so we plan.
yes, Mr. Asen Blue Quadrant man.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay, Vera, we are out of time.
Thank you, guys. That was good fun.
Thank you.
So
So our next is coming up. We have our stage 4 of the trivia.
oh yeah. Go get them yellow. Go get them yellow stage.
We'll see how many people,
Yes.
hopefully we'll get quite a few that participate,
Yeah.
and get a good group.
All right.
So thank you, Vera. Thanks,
Bye.
Terry.
Sure.
Thank you.
See you at trivia.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye-bye.